Hey guys, I know this is not normally how I start vlogs, but this is a reading vlog. So I just decided like 5 minutes ago that I was gonna do this, but we're doing a Long Halloween reading vlog. I'm reading Long Halloween, obviously, by Jeff Loeb, Tim Sal, and this is my first time rereading it, I think, since this first time I read it. So there's not a lot that I actually remember. It was a while ago. Long Halloween is kind of like a post-Batman year, like it's his like second or third year as Batman. I don't remember the exact like chronology of it, and it's a comic book, so sometimes it's really hard to pin that down anyways. But this is like a very early Batman story. He's just really kind of started to solidify who and what Batman is in this one, and we are following him as he is trying to track down a serial killer. This killer is killing on major holidays, and I don't know, I just came out of the Batman wanting to reread this comic. Like, I've been wanting to reread this comic because I didn't own it until I went and saw the Batman. But, like, I went in and I watched the Batman, and there was so much that I was like, oh, I know where they're pulling that from, and I know where they're pulling that from, and I know where they're getting this idea from. And a lot of it was the Long Halloween. So I'm like, you know what? I want to reread it. And we're going to be talking about the Batman here on my channel. Probably will have already happened by the time you see this, but we're going to be talking about that here on my channel soon. And I just was like, you know what? I want to have reread this. I do have one of the other comics that, hold on. Okay, so I also have Batman, Ego, and Other Tales by Darwin Cook, Paul Grist, Bill Ray, and Tim Sal. Oh, that's right. This is written by Darwin Cook. Darwin Cook, if you don't know, is one of my absolute favorite people to have ever worked in the Batman world. I love his work. I'm very sad he's gone. But he is responsible for my favorite rendition of Catwoman's outfit. Surprise, I know, it's not the purple one. Maybe this will just be the Batman reading vlog. I'm gonna do this all out of order because I probably should have read year one first. Hold on. Can I read year one first? I have really well thought out, well planned content, guys. Hate reading comics on my phone, but for Batman, I will do it. They have it on Hoopla. So guess what I'm borrowing? I'm gonna borrow this title. We're gonna read it tonight. It has been a very long, oh my god, these are not on my TBR. Am I reading them anyways? Yes, I am. I'm gonna read this, and then we're gonna move on to Long Halloween at some point. Okay, so I'm reading this introduction to year one, and they just said something really interesting. So, long story short, in 1986, DC decided to revamp Batman, Superman, and Wonder Woman because they wanted to kind of bring these characters that were created in the 1930s and 40s. They wanted to kind of bring them into the present. They had become dated, is how they say it, and so they wanted to make them less dated. And they ran into a problem with Batman because Batman's like, his origin story was perfect as is, like it didn't need to be changed. And so it says, so DC's editors decided Batman's origin should not be changed, but it might be improved. It could be given depth, complexity, a wider context. Details could be added to give it focus and credibility. Bruce Wayne's struggle to become the thing he was trying to create, the Batman, could be dramatized, which is so very interesting when you look at how people tend to react to Batman versus Clark and Diana, because people will talk about like one of the most consistent criticisms I hear about Clark and Diana as characters, as someone who's been interacting with the DC fandom for as long as I have been, is that they're not as interesting. I think that's a lie. I will digress, especially when Clark is concerned, because number one, how can a man who thinks Lois Lane is the queen of the earth, how could that man be boring? Like, he's just a nice guy. He's like an actual nice guy. But like, it's interesting because you have Diana and you have Clark, who granted have much, like, their stories are different, but there is a depth that you have with Batman and with Bruce Wayne, and I might be 100% biased on this, but like you have in the Batman kind of storyline, in that kind of title, and the characters that come from that title, there is a depth when it comes to Bruce's character that it's so interesting that like they had to completely, I wonder how much of that has to do with the fact that they just decided to completely redo Clark and Diana, but with Bruce they're just like, we're just going to take what we have and we're going to expand on that and add more nuance to it. That's just an interesting thought, like knowing how those two are perceived in comic book canon versus Bruce. People tend to take them more at surface value than Batman tends to be taken, at least when it comes to like his personality and who he is. There are definitely people who like brush over him like he's just a billionaire, blah blah blah. You're missing the point, and also it's a fictional narrative. Okay, we've gotten to chapter 3 of year 1, and I just want to take a look at how oh my god, what's his name? The thing I was worried about is I'm not a big fan of Frank Miller's art as it is. It just doesn't quite fit my style of what I like. But look, but it's a completely different artist for this one. So he's writing. David Mazzucchelli is the one that's the artist. But look at what he's doing with like his color palettes. I love this. So this is Bruce just got blown up, and then we switch to Selina, and it's a completely different. Like it's so like it changes the mood so quickly. It's much calmer. I love it. I just yes, like this is like the way he's using shadow and color in these, and the way he's kind of sticking with his color palette for these things. I'm just enjoying it. Like, look at how he's making, like, the contrast that we've got here. Like, also just, like, look at this. Like, it's so interesting how he's using color palettes to differentiate scenes, because we've got, like, much more purple, like, as you look at the background, and kind of that's the dominating theme of this. And then we've got down here all blues. Everything has a blue tone to it. And then even again, we've switched scenes, and much more like yellow, warm palette, but it's not like reds. Like it's... Does that make sense? Does that make sense? Hello, it's your favorite Bat fan back at you with an update. I don't know if I have given you literally any updates on The Long Halloween, but I did finish it. I still love this story. I think it is just such a quintessential classic Batman story. I love the way that Jeff Loeb is able to work so many Batman baddies, like typical, like the iconic Batman bad guys, into this story. He does a good job of like making sure that he gets like the big ones that people remember, like Joker, Poison Ivy, Riddler, and he also goes in and does like Scarecrow. He does Mad Hatter. This obviously still works as a fantastic like Harvey Dent origin story. Like, it's just, I know The Dark Knight did it good, but The Dark Knight will never be able to top this. That whole section with Harvey after he's had the acid thrown in his face in the courtroom is just like, you know what's gonna happen, but it's gut-wrenching. I understand why they did what they did in The Dark Knight, but there is a level to that having like the one place where he was kind of like king, the place that he thought he was safe, having that one place be the place that he ends up irrevocably changed. There's just a level to that you kind of don't get in The Dark Knight, because we decided to make it about a girl. So that's just, you know, if you need to write a character in, a woman in, to be the love interest so you can kill her off, so that you can make your sad boy even sadder, maybe you need to work on your creativity, because like there are so many interesting ways, and we do see a whole lot of fridging of women in comics and in Batman, but we see that in a lot of Batman comics, that like it's very easy to make Bruce sad. I'm sorry. I don't mean to go on a Dark Knight rant, because like that trilogy was a formative experience in my young adulthood. Like that is what got me back in to comics after having been out of them for years, because I was going through a Lord of the Rings phase. Yeah, I'm that girl, whatever. So I just like Sally is not always my favorite, but at the same time, he really does have such like poignant and like interesting ways that he draws stuff. I think it's really interesting to see the progression of the art from the beginning towards the end, because I think we do see a little bit of refinement when it comes to how he's drawing characters and how he's handling things like women's hair. And then just the way that everything ends up tied together in this, I'm going to have to go get Dark Victory so that I can read that as well, and When in Rome, because now I just want to read like all of that all over again. And for those that don't, like, might have just stumbled on this, you're new to Batman, Dark Victory is the direct sequel to this. When in Rome is a Selina spin-off where she goes to Rome with the Riddler for some reason. Which, I mean, like, I'm not mad about the idea of the two of them being friends. I think they're more friends than she is with Ivy and Harley, in my opinion. Just because the three of them lived together did not mean it was good for anyone in that relationship. I loved the fact that, like, Bruce's ass would have been KO'd if not for Selina, because Ivy had him. I loved that. I'd forgotten that happened, because it's been a while since I read Long Halloween. Like, a lot of this I remembered, and a lot of it I did not. And I just love the fact that, like, if he had not had someone who, like, just genuinely cared about him, like, yeah, it's territorial, but also, like, the fact that she was sitting there trying to, like, make this thing work literally saved his ass, and I love it. I don't want to give away the main twist at the end, because that is a twist. That's a real twist, and I think it needs to, like, I think that is, there are some things I'm like, you know what, it's been out for, you know, that's a good question, 10 years? 20 years? 20, I can do math. It's not 2000 anymore. It's been out for 16 years, so there are certain things that I think, that's not spoilery, whatever, especially since the Batcats have all of that all over the internet. Like, we don't care about spoilers, we just want to see the Batcat moments. Like, it's fine. But, like, I do think that there are some things that should be preserved for the experience of the reader. The one thing, like, listen, I am not a fan of the Joker on a good day, and this, Tim, what's going on there? Why? Why does he have so many teeth? That is horrifying, sir. Anyways, I have finished this, and now we are moving on to Batman, Ego, and Other Tales by Darwin Cook. So it's written by Darwin Cook. Some of it is drawn by Darwin Cook, and then he has a lot of people that helped him out in some of these as well. I have started this. I'm really excited about it. I've only gotten like a few pages in. I'm really excited about this. I just love his art style, and I love the way that, like, he has this, like, it's realistic, but it's not, and it's very obvious, like, hey, this is, like, he's not trying to be realistic, he's trying to have a style, but still evoke the human form in specific ways, and I never feel like his art, at least, I never feel like he's trying to do, like really mess with how he, like, I think he draws women really well. That's where I'm trying to go with that. Like, I don't feel like he over-sexualizes us, unless that is what the story is calling for. That's what the character is trying to do in that moment. So this is the third graphic novel that is in kind of the bind-up that they sell, or they marketed for the Batman. So I'm going to be reading this. It's a whole bunch of, like, little one-shots that Darwin has written for DC. We start out with one that it's, like, basically Batman having a psychotic break, and I guess the entire conceit is going to be, like, it's the two sides of his personality, Bruce Wayne and Batman having a conversation. We haven't gotten to that part yet. We've gotten to the part where he starts out, like, being like, this dude has messed so much stuff up in Gotham City. He is all of this stuff. He thinks he can get away, like, just ranting, ready to rip this guy a new one. And then said guy is like, oh, my life is ruined, I shall go jump off a bridge. And Bruce is like, okay, fine, I'm gonna save you now. So funny how quickly he shifts from, I want to inflict pain on you to, no, but I guess I better save you. I guess nope, you need help. It is kind of dark, trigger warnings for suicide, like right there on the page for the beginning of this. And so we'll see. I know it's got several. It's got 9 of his stories, including apparently the entirety of Selina's Big Score, which I have read before. We'll get in and we'll read this, and then we'll wrap up. I might have an update for you with this one. I might not. All right. Hi. Hello. I am here with final thoughts. So I finished Batman Ego by Darwin Cook. This was very interesting because it changed things up, because there's a whole bunch of little short stories along with a couple of the covers that he's done that are really, like, iconic covers that people think of. So the first one was Batman Ego, the story, and I thought that was really interesting. I thought it got into some of what we explore in Bruce in the Batman. I think, like, I can definitely see the things that they pulled from there to create that movie, especially kind of the almost like crisis that he is having. I think especially like the kind of plot line where Batman has almost like taken over his life and that is all he is. And we see kind of almost the culmination of that in this. Now Ego does take place, I think, later in Batman's, like, Bruce's career than the movie is, obviously, because it's like a year 2 film almost. I reread Selina's Big Score, which I've read before, and I think there are elements of that, like less actual story elements and more character elements of things that Selina goes through. I feel like those two are my favorite. Obviously, the Selina Kyle story is going to be, like, the Catwoman story is going to be my favorite. I really kind of like that as an introduction of Slam, who is going to be an important person in the comics, or in Selina's comics. I liked the kinds of things that we get to see with Selina. One of my favorite parts about Selina's Big Score is that, like, we really, in that one, you get to, because she's actually, like, we're seeing her plan out this massive heist, and I really like the fact that, like, we get to see that she is very, very smart. Like, she does not necessarily have your typical education, but she is very smart, and she knows how to do her job really, really well, and she thinks outside of the box really, really well. So I ended up giving this, I think I ended up giving this 4 stars. There were a couple that were, like, really short, quick things, and I was like, okay, these are, like, interesting, but I wasn't, especially some of the black and white ones, I wasn't particularly a huge fan of some of the art styles that were not Cook's art styles. I did like the little, like, kind of date night comic that they did, but yeah, that was interesting. So ratings and final thoughts, I ended up giving Batman Year 1 5 stars. I really enjoyed it. I think it's a very interesting kind of exploration of Bruce's character and of the thought process that he had coming back to Gotham, knowing that he had an idea, but he wasn't quite sure what the shape of the idea was needed. And then we also have Jim Gordon just now coming into Gotham for the first time and having to navigate what he's getting the idea of what Gotham is as he's kind of going. So we have Bruce coming in, knowing Gotham, having to figure out how he fits and who he is, and then we have Jim coming in, knowing who he is and having to figure out Gotham. That was really, like, that's interesting. Then we had The Long Halloween. I also gave that 5 stars. It's just a classic. You can't give it anything less. And I really, really just, it's an interesting comic from beginning to end. I wish there was more Selina, but that is my thing every single time. And I really like the variety of Batman baddies that we get to see in this one. And then finally, I've read Batman Ego and Other Tales by Darwin Cook. That one I ended up giving 4 stars. I think that, like, the longer stories were really good. I think they delved into some stuff. Like the first Batman Ego story, his first DC story, you can kind of tell he's a brand new writer because it doesn't have quite the amount of finesse that, like, Selina's Big Score does. But I still think that those two are kind of the standouts in this particular volume. And then, like, the one-offs are kind of fun. They're nice to read. They're interesting character reactions or interesting, like, explorations of, like, a very small idea. But I do kind of like the long form a little bit better. I like my stories to have a definite arc and conclusion and all of that. If you've read these, I would love to hear your thoughts in the comments. I'm always down to talk about Batman. If you're not feeling chatty, but you still want to let me know that you watched to the end of the video, go ahead and obviously leave me a bat and a cat emoji. Both of them together, because that is how they should be. Thank you so much for watching. If you enjoyed this video, please give it a thumbs up. I make other bookish videos, so make sure that you check out some of what's over here. I will have one of my latest Batman videos up here and whatever is newest on my channel down here. That is it for now, my friends. Happy reading, and I will see you later when we will talk about more wordy, nerdy things. Bye!